When you did the instant induction earlier today, what is the very first thing you had to do? You tested it for compliance. Would that be fair to say? So step one was? All right, that's 2 men and a dog. There's a few more people than that in the room. So what's the first thing you did? Compliance. Compliance, right? But we want to start moving in the direction of something more conversational now. So whilst it's good to carry on doing the physical compliance, can you stand here, can you look at me this way, and so on, those are more overt signs, and it's good to carry on doing that to get more familiarity with it. I also want you to have the flip side, which is more subtle ways of doing the same thing, right? So I want you to really pay attention to something. Just really listen into this. Do I have compliance? It's a little more subtle to spot, isn't it? Yeah? Just look at this a moment. Everyone just have a look at that. Do I have compliance? But again, it fits the social context, the interaction that we're having. So it doesn't jump out of the interaction like something saying, please stand up, which is taking you out of the interaction. And yet, I still, if I observe you, get to have a good sense of where you're at. Does that make sense? The more you do the physical things that are easiest to spot, then when you go to the more subtle versions, you'll still have a good sense of how they're responding. And that should make sense at this point, right? So we have compliance. What is the next thing that you did? You heard it over here? What is that? The induction, absolutely right, right? The induction we did a moment ago was basically startle reflex and sleep, right? It's about as simple as you can get. What did we do after the induction? We did the deepener, exactly. And of course, when I say deepen, you realize it's not necessarily a question of deepen, it's just intensification. It could be widening, it could be elongating, it could be rising. Whatever it is, it's a metaphor for increasing whatever is there, right? So these are the main things that we did so far. Would that be fair? So now, what if we, oh, it looks like a 4-year-old wrote it. There we go. So, give an example of an act of compliance you can ask for conversationally. Just move over here. How about, would you like to work with me? Sure. Great. Is that an act of compliance? Would you take a seat over here? Is that an act of compliance? But it feels like we're just having a conversation. No one knows that we've started yet unless you are looking for it like we are. Does that make sense? So I want you to have a real simple act of compliance. Can everyone think of something like that we want to do? Yes? Does that make sense? Can I talk to you a minute? Right? Are you happy to have it start? Exactly. You're happy to dive in and have a go? Perfect. So you're all happy to do that, and importantly, it's not just the question that's of importance, it's the response that you're getting. It's how they react to the request. That's what you're interested in, right? Turn to the person next to you a moment and ask them to close their eyes, would you? And once it's happened, turn the other way and do the same thing again, so the other person gets a go. So near and that's it. Was that difficult to do, folks? No? Not exactly rocket science, would that be fair to say? So why don't we just add something here? Whoop. Add something here that you're already familiar with. Is that difficult to do? To ask someone to do that? Yes, no? Just to say the word. Right, you just say it, and then whatever they do is your next step, right? What I'd like you to do is find the person sitting next to you, just turn to them right now. I would like to get one simple act of compliance based on how well they're complying, and folks, let's be nice to them at this point, we're just still on some training wheels here. Then just ask them very simply to close their eyes and go into a trance. Can you all do that? All right, you have 10 seconds apiece because it does not take long. Off you go. Have you all had a chance to go both ways quickly? Yeah? It doesn't take long. It takes 3 seconds to ask one question, 3 seconds to ask the next statement, and you're pretty much there, right? Would that be fair to say? Feedback here, folks? Yes or no? Yes. All right. Do you want a little bit more than that? Yes. So you may or may not have had a great trance, right? And by the way, anyone here think like, well, that's not much of a trance induction? Just a couple of words. Right? Would you all do me a favor a moment? Just put your pens and papers down, would you? You see the act of compliance, do you not? Then I'd like for you, in your own time, when you're ready, to just close your eyes and go into a comfortable trance now. That's right, just close those eyes and go into a comfortable trance now. And then come on back. Who here didn't want to come back when I just asked you to do? How is that possible, folks, if this is not an induction? How could you want to stay somewhere you haven't changed from where you've come from? Right? So, even though it's simple, it's still using the law of association. Can you see that very clearly? Yes? Right? Because you've used the law of association and you've suggested something, the chances of them responding that way are much higher. Is it the end-all and be-all? Of course not. But you're assuming your compliance is right, the mindset is in the right place, well then you do not need any more than this. Sometimes you need to have a little bit of extra skill to get them to that point, and that's what we'll cover as we go through more of the days. But the essence is right here, and you've all felt it pretty much now, haven't you? Yes? And the reason I'm saying this, folks, is because you don't want to overcomplicate things. You can make it as sophisticated and elegant and as much stuff in it as you want, but you don't need to do anything crazy around it. I'll come to you in a minute, if I may. If you understand a simple version, then all these sophisticated, elegant things you've seen, you've been wanting to do, it's just lots of these things put together. It's the idea behind them that matters, your expression of a principle. Principle here is the law of association and the idea of a suggestion. Does that make sense? You had a quick question. Let me just give you the microphone here. Yeah, would you pass that back so that we can all hear properly?
Okay, was more of a comment. You don't even need to call it a trance. Go into a trance. You can just say and relax and focus on your breathing or whatever.
I like the way you're thinking, Cora. You're about 2 days ahead of everyone else. Good job, seriously. So this is easy, yes? Everyone has done this? Oh, quick one.
What if people don't know the meaning of trance?
The question is, what if people don't know the meaning of trance? That's what we'll come on to. Right now, we're doing baby steps. Right? Do you all know a rough idea of what I mean by trance? By rough, I mean it's getting clearer, although you're not entirely sure what it is yet. Yes? That's all we need. It'll make more sense as we go along, don't worry. So, the next thing, what was the third step we did? A deepener, right? So now we're going to have one, oh, you know what? Let's do this again. Let's do it this way. Do you recognize a power word here? The ellipses, the little dots, what do you think you put in there? The correct answer is right there. Would you like to say that nice and loud for everyone else to hear?
Whatever you like.
Exactly. Because you're using the law of associations. Of course, when we say whatever you like, you realize that some things are going to be more conducive to get the result than others. Relax! Or relax. You realize that, right? But honestly, right now, I don't care what you do. You can go all the way to one extreme or the other, or stay somewhere in the middle. Don't care, right? To some extent or another, it will have practical value. Quick question over here.
Couldn't you even change that to every time you breathe?
So the question is, couldn't you change it from I to you? Every time you breathe, you'll go deeper and deeper. Do it. Find out. See what happens. Do you all understand the exercise? Oh, quick question over here.
Can we change the order of the process? Can you have the deepener first before the induction?
You can definitely try it and see what happens. And tell us afterwards if you want to do it that way. Okay? Seriously, try it, see what happens, and then tell us afterwards what the experience was for you or for your partner. Okay, guys? For the moment, though, for anyone who wants to keep it in a simple direction, we'll start with step 1, which is, here we go, your act of compliance. I'm leaving it blank because it's infinite almost. Close your eyes and go into a trance. You can clearly see the power words. And then every time I, you, whatever, you'll go deeper. Is that easy to do, folks? If I gave you 30 seconds, you could do that with the person next to you, and then give them a chance to do it back to you, right? Go ahead and do it. So how is that? Interesting? Who is surprised with how much more effective this is than it should be with just a few words? Anyone? Who here, being the subject, the client, actually really enjoyed it and thought, well, I don't want him to stop. Just carry on a little longer. I won't admit it in public, but you'll soon be joining TA. You know what that is? Trance Anonymous. Hi, I haven't had a good trance in 3 days. Please help me. Okay, so this is easy, right? Up until this point, we basically did exactly the same thing you did with the instant induction, but now we're using language for it, right? So can you see the parallels in terms of the maneuvers? You're seeing the same responses, only it's a little more conversational. Not entirely conversational yet, because we're still dealing with overtly hypnotic themes, but it's more of a stepping stone in that direction. Would that be correct? Yes? What I'd like to introduce you to now is what are you going to do with them there? I mean, let's face it, you didn't come all this way just to learn how to put someone in trance, because that's the easy part. The bit where you really make or break your skill set, where you become a true master at something, is when you get results, isn't it? And the result is not the trance is a means to that result. Unfortunately, a lot of people focus on, oh, what's the best technique for this? What's the best induction for that? And it's irrelevant. Once you have the trance, you want to waste as little time as possible on that. It's step 4 that you're interested in. That's where you do your work, right? Whoop. Isn't that a simple way of presenting something of benefit to people here? Who here thinks that they have something to learn over the next few days? Anyone? So if someone would suggest to you that it's easier to learn, that your mind opens to these new learnings, do you think that would be a overall more positive or more negative thing for you? Once again, only 2 people seem to be thinking this. We can do negative hypnosis as well. I have a top hat and a monocle. We can do evil hypnosis school. I can really mess you guys up if you want that. But overall, would you prefer evil hypnosis school or someone to give you overall learnings and so on? Which would you rather have? I agree with you. Thank you for that. Notice once again that we are now associating things. The word until, all they're doing is attaching to an ongoing process, which is their deepening. You have no idea when it's going to be. They don't know it's going to be, but it'll happen when it happens because you've suggested. Does that make sense? Good question in the back here.
Yeah, I was just saying on the physical induction, we use the tapping on the head as to get the startle reflex and to bypass the critical factor. I was wondering what would be the equivalent here.
That's a great question to think about, isn't it?
Yes.
Why is it not in here?
Exactly. Where is it?
I know. That's not the best question. The question is, why is it not in here? you understand the difference? That's a good response. I like that one. Keep it in your mind. And I promise you, if in the next day or two it hasn't been answered for you by your own experience, I will specifically address that for you. Is that okay? In fact, if you like, put that down as a question and put it on the question wall, and that way you'll be sure that I'll keep it uppermost in my mind. So far, so good? Yeah? Is this easy? Is this easy? Yes. Do you mean to add just one more step, seeing as it's just so easy anyways? Yes. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? So here's the final step. And you can just do these literally. The language, you realize, is there's no magic in the language. It's the ideas that you're communicating step by step. Does that make sense? The last step is actually the easiest because you've done it all along without even realizing it. Is that easy or what? Right? Do you see the same principle of suggestion, the law of association in action throughout that? And that's what allows you to turn something physical, like the instant induction, to something more conversational, if not yet entirely so. Make sense? So I would call this a 10-second hypnotist. Do you know why? Because you get 10 seconds to do this. So 20 seconds for both sides, off you go. So how's that, folks? Great. Right? Yeah, give yourself a round of applause for sure. You deserved it. Who here is starting to feel like a genuine hypnotist, if not like they're surrounded by one? Watch the hands up, because if you're not feeling like one, the person next to you is disagreeing with you. So this is a simple process, right? This is the core movements you go through in a hypnosis session.